This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Best-selling author Josh Young and his latest subject, famed trial lawyer Fred Levin, on this edition of Conversations. Josh Young's writing career has paired him with some notable personalities. Young has co-written bestsellers with Howie Mandel, Bob Newhart, and Jim Belushi. In addition, he has written for premier publications like the New York Times, Esquire, and Life magazines. He's interviewed and profiled some of Hollywood's most iconic names, including Clint Eastwood, John Travolta, and Harrison Ford. Despite having an affinity for Tinseltown, Young has always been impressed with trial lawyers. With his latest biography, he discovered a small-town lawyer with a Hollywood personality. And Give Up Showbiz is the biography of one of the legal profession's superstars, Fred Levin. Early on, Fred had desires to become a tax attorney, but a bluff by a local hotshot lawyer forced a young, inexperienced, and nervous Fred Levin into a jury trial. And as the saying goes, a star was born. Levin would go on to become one of the preeminent trial lawyers in the nation. His jury awards total in the tens of millions. His most noticeable accomplishment, or I should say his most notable accomplishment, may be what no one before him had been able to do in a meaningful way. And that was land a solid left hook into the jaw of big tobacco. Levin's out-of-the-box thinking led to a law being passed in Florida that would bring the Sunshine State a $13 billion settlement. The boxing analogy is appropriate when talking about Fred Levin. In the 1990s, Fred's success in the courtroom spilled over into the boxing ring. Fred managed champion boxer Roy Jones Jr., a feat that led to him being named Boxing Manager of the Year. Fred's impact on the legal community will live on in time. The University of Florida Law School now bears his name. In the biography and Give Up Showbiz, Josh Young provides an honest and unvarnished look inside the life and career of Fred Levin. We are pleased to have both Fred Levin and Josh Young on this edition of Conversations. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jeff.
How did the two of you guys get hooked up?
Well, I had been looking for a lawyer to write a book on. I'd been fascinated with lawyers when I grew up. F. Lee Bailey, to me, was like John Havlicek of the Boston Celtics. I mean, he was a superstar. And so as the years passed, and I had written a lot of other books with notable personalities, I had always wanted to find a trial lawyer, but I wanted someone who was really unique. I had written a book with Wayne Rogers, the actor and multifaceted businessman, who has a place in Destin. And I was having drinks with him one day, and I told him of this desire of mine to write this book on a lawyer. He said, you know, I may have just the perfect guy for you. There's this wily old cat in Pensacola who is one of the best trial lawyers of the century. And controversy follows this guy around like a lapdog. He said, you're not going to believe the stories about that. I said, you have to get me a meeting with him. And he did.
So he comes to you, Fred, and says, I want to write a book about you. What are you thinking?
At the time, I didn't know what to think. And the more I talked to him and the more I realized who he was. I mean, he's a 5 times New York Times best-selling author. And we discussed what it was going to be. And I told him that I didn't want just a puff piece. And he said, well, you don't have to worry about that. And so we both agreed it would be totally open, totally honest. And that's what took place. He did many, many interviews, not just with me, but with a number of other people, and came up with really a very an easy to read book that I thought was the reason he is a 5-time New York Times best-selling author is he writes well.
Yeah. As you started to dig into Fred's life, Josh, what most surprised you or intrigued you?
Ultimately, what most surprised me was how he interacted with his family and his failings as a family man. There was so much success in his life, in the courtroom, bringing down big tobacco, putting his name on the University of Florida Law School, managing Roy Jones Jr., being a chief of Ghana, having friends like Jack Kemp and Emmett Smith and Don King, having Muhammad Ali to his house. But that's just a famous guy, winning, making money, hanging out, partying. But the real person comes out when you get into the family life, and his failings as a family man and his honesty in describing those, to me, created a human being.
Yeah, Fred, you were very, very open in the book about your your role as a dad and as a husband. Tell us more.
As these incredible things started happening in my life, I mean, you've got to think. Big verdicts, have the best pound-for-pound boxer of the 20th century come in and say, I want you to represent me. Hall of Fame in boxing and in trial law, all of these great things were happening. And I really got to thinking they were real, that boy, I'm bigger than life. And in doing so, I mean, I was gone working 7 days a week, and I missed out on so much. But you don't really realize it till the end of your life or toward the end of your life. And the thing I felt worse about was my wife had something which is today known as irritable bowel syndrome, stomach problems, real painful things. Well, back then, this was in the early 60s, it was unknown, and the doctors were telling me, oh, it's in her mind. There's no reason for this. Well, I believe the doctors, and you can imagine what it was like at home when you'd come home and she's talking about being in pain, and I'm saying, I'm not falling for this, screaming and yelling. And then as nowadays you look on television, and they got all kind of drugs for IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. And so when Josh and I were talking about the book, I said, I really, at that time, my wife had passed away, and I reflected on life, and I said, you know, I really want this book to say more than, boy, Fred Levin is a great guy, great superstar, and all of this. I wanted it to tell others that there's something more in life than being, you know, so wrapped up in yourself. It reminded me of, there was a party we were having at my house one time, and I don't remember who the politician was, but the question was asked. I remember he was a United States Senator, and they asked him, said, Senator, how is it that you and your wife have been so happy and stayed together for 30-some years? And he said, the easy answer is we've both been in love with the same man all that time. And that's basically what my life was like.
You attribute, your children turned out really well.
Yes.
And they're successful. All four of them are successful and accomplished in their own right. And you attribute that to your wife.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it certainly couldn't attribute it to me. I was never home. Out of the 15 different graduations, I attended one, and that I was forced to do. Yeah. Because it was always, I could have, well, for example, I remember my daughter Marcy, who's now a circuit judge, graduating from law school. Well, I had the chance to either go to her graduation at the University of Florida or go to the Kentucky Derby with Gary Hart and all the big shots, and I made the choice, well, you know, I'll never get a chance again to see the Kentucky Derby with all these people, never realizing, well, I never will get the chance to see my daughter graduate from law school. So that was pretty much how I'll look back at life, and had you asked me at the moment, Fred, Marcy's getting ready to graduate law school, or you can go and be a superstar again, I would have elected to be the superstar. Now, some 30 years later, or whatever it might be, I wish I'd have gone, you know, I wish I'd have gone to the graduation.
But as hard as Fred is on himself, there's something great that came out of that. Obviously, he says Marilyn raised the kids and instilled them with these values. But one of the things he did by working so hard and making so much money is he took that obstacle off the table for not only his 4 children, who have become successful, as you said, and don't need that, but for their children and their grandchildren and the cousins and anyone who's part of the Levin family. I grew up in a middle-class environment. Most people I know, the biggest thing that in their life hanging over them is money. I need to make a lot. I need to make enough money, not to be happy, but to put my kids through college. Some people to put food on the table, to go on vacations or whatever. By working so hard, he eliminated that. So as his family members entered relationships, that they always knew that was never going to be an issue. So they could therefore focus on other things.
As you talked to his kids, what did you learn?
Just that. I mean, they learned that they saw their father differently, I think, than he saw their relationship with them. They had tough times growing up, certainly because of their mother's illnesses and their father not being there. But truthfully, I think they saw a love between their parents that, was pretty unique and unparalleled, as volatile as it was. And I think that's carried over into their lives. I think they would tell you that.
What were your parents like, Fred?
Pretty much like me. My father worked. He had the pawn shop downtown. He had the concessions at the dog track, the concessions at the beach. He was an entrepreneur, and he was gone. We'd have breakfast, and he was out working 7 days a week. And my mother stayed home, raised 6 boys, and great cook. But that was the 50s. That's the way it was supposed to be. So here comes the 60s, and that was me. I mean, keep in mind, when I was in law school, there were 1,000 students throughout the whole school. There was one woman, and of course, one black entered with me. That was it. So it was a different world. So you say, how were they? I replicated what my dad was, I guess.
Who most influenced you in your life? Would it have been your dad?
Probably. Obviously, it must be, because he worked. I mean, he provided for all of us, so that I never really, as Josh said, one of the biggest problems in families, and it's unfortunate, is money. And I mean, how are we going to pay for this, or mortgages, or especially nowadays? And that was pretty much eliminated for me as I was growing up. I never really wondered about, where the next meal was going to come from, or who was going to put me through college, or anything like that. So,
but obviously, though, your family instilled something, not just in you, but your brother's highly successful, either in real estate or in the law field. I mean, did you get that sense, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. There was definitely a constitution that was instilled by his parents. He also grew up at a time in the South where not only was it racially divided, but it was very anti-Semitic, and there weren't a lot of Jews around. It wasn't as if he grew up in Long Island, in New York. So he dealt, and his family dealt with a lot of anti-Semitism. They dealt with it in different ways, but they lived with it, and ironically, it became one of the major factors of his success, but I think it also created a tighter knit unit than you might have otherwise had between a bunch of brothers who could have been at each other's throats all the time.
Which brings me to a story that you talk about in the book. When you first went into law school at the University of Florida, there was an African-American gentleman in there. Tell the story about Mr. Stark there and what he went through and how you helped him out.
All right. This was September 1958, and 360 white students in the auditorium. We had no idea what was getting ready to happen, but the back doors of the auditorium opened up, and here were 2 or 3 U.S. Marshals with this black gentleman dressed appropriately. We were all in shorts and, that kind of stuff. Right. And he was dressed in a suit. And all of the students, except, I didn't, they started shuffling their feet like you would in prison if you're disappointed in something or disagree. And so it was divided into 2 sections, and George Stark was in my section, and so I was in every class with him, and every time he tried to say something, it was horrible. They would mock him, they would shuffle him, he'd walk down the halls, they'd use the N-word, and I really felt, for a lot of reasons, I felt for him, but I didn't have the guts to stand up. There were only 2 people in that whole section that did not have a study partner, and that was George, because he was black, and me. They knew that I had to go to summer school just to get a 2.0 to get into law school. So I didn't have a study partner because I was stupid, and he didn't have one because he was black. All right, well, at the end of the semester, who's leading the class? Me. All right. George walks into the library, and they start that shuffling again. And all of a sudden, I got up and walked over, sat down next to him, and I said, "George, you need any help?" He says, "I sure do." I said, "Why don't you and I become study partners?" And we did. And the thing that was amazing to me was, now I mean, keep in mind, out of these 360 students, we've got Supreme Court justices later, U.S. senators, governors, and all of them were part of this game until I befriended George. And then what was amazing was more and more people started coming around. And the true racists you could have counted on one hand. So we became friends. Unfortunately, they flunked him out. They flunked out 5 out of every 6. Only 60 of us graduated. And then 50, well, actually more than 50 years later, the first black to have ever graduated the University of Florida was the 50th anniversary. They asked me to come do the keynote address, which I did, and George came. And for the first time, I'd asked him, I said, "You know what was a shame was they flunked you out because you missed the exam that you and I had studied for all night long." I said, "You slept through it." He said, No. I showed up about 5, 10 minutes late, and the professor wouldn't let me in. And that was the reason he flunked out. Times change.
Yeah, I'm sure how. Thankfully, they've changed. Let's talk about your legal career and the success. You're so well known for what you did with Big Tobacco, and I want you to tell that story because there were ideas bubbling up of trying to sue Big Tobacco, and as I kind of mentioned in the open, nobody had really been able to make any impact.
Yes.
What did you do that changed the course of that?
Well, I was in British Columbia when another lawyer came up to me and said, "We're thinking about suing Big Tobacco for the state of Mississippi, and we want you to do it in Florida." I said, "Absolutely not." There was no way they've ever paid a nickel. And anyhow, I returned to Pensacola, and I'm flipping through the statute books. It's just another one of those lucky things. And I look down, and there is the third-party Medicaid Recovery Act, which allows Florida to sue for damages done to Medicaid victims. And I said, if I change this and add a word here and a few commas, I might be able to get the state to sue Big Tobacco. Anyhow, went to Governor Childs. He thought it was a great idea. We then went to Senator Childers, and they passed this statute in the wee hours of the morning of the last day of the session. And there's a lot that can be said about it, but the bottom line is it became known as the most significant piece of health care legislation ever passed in this country. Big Tobacco realized this could happen in every state. They came to the table. They paid almost $300 billion. They changed advertising. They did a lot of things so that today it is said that probably 100,000 American lives each year are saved because of that statute. Now keep in mind, that's about the same number of American lives that we lost in the Vietnam and Korean conflicts combined.
Josh, as you delved into that story, what were you thinking?
Well, it really personifies Fred Levin's work ethic, because he had to go in with the attention to detail to find this obscure law, to rewrite it, but to rewrite it and not mention Big Tobacco. So they didn't know they were going to be targeted. He then had to use his connections, this is quintessential Fred Levin, to get the law passed. So he had been friends with W.D. Childers, he'd been his special counsel, he had a relationship with the governor, so he goes to them and gets this thing passed on a voice vote in the middle of the night, and Big Tobacco doesn't know they're being targeted. Well, when they figure it out, of course, all hell breaks loose. And then Fred then assembles this dream team of lawyers, all these renegade lawyers who are going to take a chance and sue Big Tobacco. Now, keep in mind, at this time, they don't know this law is going to have to be upheld and survive court challenges. And there's also the possibility of it being overturned as Big Tobacco puts pressure on the senators and the legislature who passed it. So, again, high risk, ultimately high reward, and high drama, always.
One of my favorite parts of the book was after the Big Tobacco. You get a lot of publicity, and
I know what you're going to say.
Well, I like it. I was sharing this with someone. I told I'd read the book, that I guess you're on ABC 2020.
Yes.
Okay, and I believe it was John Stossel was interviewing you, and he's talking about how much money you have taken away from the tobacco company, and you fire up a cigarette.
All right. Well, I mean, I realized they had interviewed, 20 different lawyers from around the country, but only one was going to be on the show. And Stossel hates lawyers. Something must have happened in his life somewhere. So he's asking questions, and I always think back to lawyer Shaky Latham back in Pensacola when I first started, and he said, whatever you do, it doesn't make any difference what they say about you, just make sure they spell your name correctly. So I wanted to get on that 2020 show. And Stossel is asking questions, and I said, John, do you mind if I light up a cigarette? And you would have thought I'll lighted up the whole studio. Oh, go right ahead. So I'll light up a cigarette, and I'm smoking, and he just couldn't wait to, at the end, to really lay it on. Well, of course, I PO'd all the other lawyers for a lot of reasons. One is they said, you made us look like a bunch of idiots. But, like I say, the one thing was that there I was. And then Josh, he'll have to tell you, he was doing George Magazine. He and John Kennedy were dear, dear friends, and he'll have to tell you.
Well, that's actually, to go back to your original question as to how did I find Fred Levin? Well, Wayne Rogers made the introduction, but back in 1997, 1998, when this happened, I was writing for George Magazine, working for John Kennedy Jr., and I had done a story for this issue on Shalia Lawrence, who was the wife of Ambassador Larry Lawrence. And she was suing Arianna Huffington, who was then a syndicated columnist, because Arianna had implied that Shalia had an affair with Bill Clinton. Oh. So that's my story. The cat fight, imagine that, the cat fight between Shalia and Arianna. So I do my story. I'm in the office looking at the mock-up with the editor. All the stories are on the board. I'm looking at mine, I'm thinking, that looks okay. And I said, wait a second, what is this? And there was a photo spread of all of the lawyers who had nationally helped bring down big tobacco. The lead photo was of a guy standing in a tuxedo with sunglasses on, a cigarette in his hand, a cocktail in his hand, on the putting green at his house. I said to my editor, I said, who is that? He said, oh, that's Fred Levin. He's crazy, but in a good way. And my first thought was, why didn't I get that story? So later, when Wayne told me about Fred Levin and started to get into these controversies and the things that Fred had done, I'm thinking, I know this guy. I ran home, I opened the magazine, sure enough, there it was.
Tell me the Gorbachev story.
This is a fantastic story. I mean, we were just in New York City doing press, meeting people. People say, Fred Levin, never heard of him. I say, well, there's one story that'll tell you Fred Levin is. Fred's at a dinner for 30 people in New York. It's a big humanitarian dinner. And Mikhail Gorbachev stands up, former Soviet premier, stands up to speak. And he says, tonight is about heroes and people who've done things for humanity. He says, one of my heroes is President Bill Clinton. President Bill Clinton's at the dinner. He stands up. He says, one of my heroes is also here tonight because of what he has done for humanity and used his efforts as a celebrity and a rock star. Bono. Bono had just been on the cover of Time magazine. He stands up and Bono says, I'm from Northern Ireland and we've had a conflict there, internecine warfare forever. But the person who has done the most to help bring that to a close is one of my heroes, Betty Williams, the Nobel Peace Prize winner. Betty Williams stands up. She says, well, one of my heroes is here tonight, Fred Levin. And Fred stands up, and everyone in the room looks at this guy and says, who the heck is Fred Levin? Well, this book will tell you who Fred Levin is.
It was really funny because that was back when I was a drinker. So you've got a picture. There I am seated. I mean, it really was 30 people in the room, some big to do. And I'm seated next to David. I mean, I'm Fred, I'm David, and so we're sitting there talking, and my son Martin, who Betty Williams gave her Nobel Peace Prize to, comes over and he said, how things going, Daddy, knowing I'd been drinking. I said, oh, fine. I said, Martin, let me introduce you to my new friend David. And he looks over there and he sees the place card. Oh, Mr. Rockefeller, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I mean, it was a wild night.
It's
And
so important.
unfortunately, I forgot about that story when he's writing the book.
Yeah, well, he's drinking too much that night. And poor David Rockefeller's sitting there next to this drunk, has no idea what's going on. And then we go through the Gorbachev, Clinton, Bono, Betty Williams, Fred Levin, and he's thinking, what? Wait a second. I thought this guy was the town drunk.
Which I was.
I've got about 3 minutes. I'm going to say a few names and just give me a quick synopsis on them. Ruben Askew.
Probably the greatest person I've ever met, and certainly one of the greatest governors this state has ever had, and would have been a great president.
Jack Kemp.
Jack Kemp became a wonderful friend as a result of actually through boxing. And he's just a fabulous human being who made the comment that has been quoted so many times that the most difficult place in a Roy Jones Jr. fight is after the fight when you try to get between the camera and Fred Levin.
Josh, what do you want the reader to take away from this book?
I would like the reader to see that there's a portrait of a truly great American life here, a man who has made a difference in the lives of everyone across this country, even if they don't know it. He's a colorful character, but also he's a human being at heart.
Fred, what's the future like? You continue to practice?
Oh, yeah. I don't have anything else really to do. I don't play tennis. I don't play golf. I don't gamble anymore. I don't drink anymore. So I'm practicing law. Actually, I'm going to leave here October 5th and spend 2 months in California trying a case. And hopefully it's a big case.
Good deal. Good deal. Lots of energy, huh?
Indeed.
Josh Young has written the book. It's entitled And Give Up Showbiz. The subject is Fred Levin, one of the most well-known and successful trial lawyers in the nation. It's a great book. Josh did a fabulous job, in my judgment, of really telling a great story, and not just about Fred's personality, but personally, I enjoyed just some of the background on some of the legal cases and how it happened. And unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to get into all of that, but kind of how you came up with structured settlements and things of that nature. I really enjoyed that. So nice job. Pleasure to meet you, Josh. Fred, as always, great to see you.
Thank you.
And best of luck on the book tour.
Thank you.
You bet. By the way, we did an earlier interview with Fred a couple of years ago, and you can find that on YouTube or at WSRE.org. And you can also find many more of our conversations online at WSRE.org/conversations on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Jeff Weeks. Hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take great care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Support for this program is provided in part by these corporate sponsors. And by viewers like you.